Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, will be deposed, and I suspect that might be making Ryan Reynolds extremely nervous.
You are not ready for what's about to go down. This isn't just another Hollywood bromance gone weird. This is a full-blown mess of secrets, betrayal, and some serious behind-the-scenes power plays. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman? Yeah, the internet's favorite duo? Turns out things between them might not be so picture-perfect. We're talking leaked texts, sketchy legal moves, and a friendship that might have just exploded under the weight of all the drama. And what's even crazier? This thing has spiraled so far out of control it's now dragging marriages, careers, and reputations down with it. No one saw this coming. Not fans, not the media, not even Marvel. But here's the wild part.
If I didn't have Hugh Jackman and he didn't have me, who would we hate?
The stuff that's coming out now, it's not just awkward or embarrassing, it's the kind of shitty that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about these people. So buckle up, because what's really going on behind the scenes is way darker than anyone's admitting. And trust me, you're gonna want to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. It all started with a lawsuit that no one took seriously, until it blew up into one of the biggest scandals Hollywood's seen in years. At first, it looked like just some petty behind-the-scenes drama between Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, and director Justin Baldoni over their film It Ends With Us. But then things got messy. Real messy. Accusations started flying.
PSA for no spoilers. So, are you suffering from kindness? Do you feel absolutely hopeless in ruining things for other people?
Defamation, interference, even extortion. And out of nowhere, Hugh Jackman's name pops up like a plot twist no one saw coming. People were confused. Like, why is Wolverine suddenly in the middle of a legal war between his best friend and a film director? It didn't make sense until you start digging into what really happened. Because the truth? Jackman wasn't just some innocent bystander dragged into the drama. He was tied to Reynolds through more than just a few cringy skits and red carpet moments. His involvement in those promo videos? That was just the surface. Behind the scenes, lawyers were scrambling.
A Hollywood legal battle heads to a New York City courtroom today with a hearing on the lawsuit between actors Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni.
Friendships were cracking, and reputations were quietly being shredded. And Ryan? He wasn't acting like someone who had things under control. In fact, insiders say he was panicking, especially when he realized Jackman might be called to testify. This wasn't just bad press. This was the kind of legal nightmare that could end careers. And as the case unfolded, it became clear that Reynolds wasn't just fighting a lawsuit. He was fighting to keep a whole bunch of secrets buried. But what did Hugh Jackman do next? That's when things took a turn no one expected. At first, Hugh Jackman's part in all this seemed small, almost like a fluke. He'd filmed a few skits with Reynolds, showed up for some press stuff, and that was it.
Just when people thought Justin Baldoni was finally the bad guy, Blake Lively proved she will always be the bad guy. Justin Baldoni just released a piece of the puzzle that will destroy Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Colleen Hoover, Taylor Swift, the New York Times. He's killing 5 birds.
Right? Wrong. Because when the legal documents dropped, Jackman's name was all over them. Not just mentioned in passing, named as someone who would be deposed. And that's when everyone started asking the same question. What the hell does he have to do with any of this? Turns out, those goofy skits tied to It Ends With Us, they weren't just harmless fun. There was one in particular that raised eyebrows, a painfully awkward promo where Ryan directed. Blake made a weird cameo, and even Ryan's mom was involved. Jackman was thrown into the middle of it, playing along like always, but there was nothing normal about it. Especially when you realize the movie they were promoting deals with domestic violence, and somehow they turned that into a joke. From the outside, it looked like a classic case of Hollywood weirdness. But behind the scenes, legal teams were digging through every clip, every message, every sketch.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are seeking further legal protection. The couple's legal team files a letter with the court January 21st requesting a gag order.
Because now they weren't just dealing with bad taste, they were building a timeline. And Jackman, whether he liked it or not, was on it. Ryan may have thought bringing in his buddy would keep things light, but instead, it put Hugh right in the blast zone. And the more tangled things got, the more it looked like Jackman wasn't just a side character in this drama. He might have been holding some of the biggest secrets of all. And when those secrets started leaking, that's when the real chaos began. So here's where it goes from messy to absolutely wild. Out of nowhere, private text messages connected to Ryan Reynolds started leaking online. Not just random screenshots.
It's Blake. We always promised each other that we would.
Full conversations. And they weren't flattering. These weren't just sarcastic jokes or Hollywood banter. There was something off about them. Weird phrasing, nervous energy, and undertones that made people pause and go, wait, what is he really saying here? And just when the internet started connecting the dots, Candace Owens, yeah, that Candace, stepped in with receipts. She claimed someone close to the situation had sent her insider details. And the most jaw-dropping part? She hinted that it was Hugh Jackman himself who leaked the texts. Let that sink in. One of Ryan's oldest friends, his ride-or-die bromance, the guy he's joked with on camera for over a decade.
Do you do all your own acting?
If they're scenes, I do them.
Yes. That's where the craft is.
Yeah. It's key to a good marriage.
Now possibly the one pulling the strings from the shadows, feeding info to a political commentator to save himself, or maybe to burn it all down. Candace wasn't subtle either. She claimed Jackman was done playing nice, that he'd had enough of being dragged into Ryan's mess, and this leak? It wasn't an accident, it was strategy. So now you've got Reynolds in the middle of a lawsuit, his so-called best friend possibly flipping on him, and the world suddenly looking at their bromance like it was never what it seemed. Was Jackman trying to protect himself? Or was this revenge? Either way, it lit a match under everything, and what came next would flip the story upside down. Ryan Reynolds has always played the role of Hollywood's golden boy. Funny, charming, effortlessly likable.
Taylor Swift texts Blake Lively and says, I'll give you a connection. You can burn Justin Baldoni with my dragon fire like I did to Joe Alwyn.
The guy who can drop a joke in any situation and somehow still come out looking polished. But lately, that persona's starting to feel more like a costume than reality. Because when you really look at the pattern, it's hard not to notice something strange. The constant jokes with homoerotic undertones, the repeated kissing of male co-stars at award shows and press events, it's become a running theme. One kiss with Andrew Garfield at the Golden Globes? Sure. Twice? Okay. But 3, 4, 5 times? At a certain point, people started asking, what's the deal here? And here's where it gets even more interesting. Candace Owens didn't just drop her theory and walk away. She dug deeper.
If you find out that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Hefner have a relationship or something, it does change significantly. It tells you about the mindset.
Saying that all these public stunts weren't just quirky humor. They were intentional, part of a long-running performance meant to keep the public guessing about who Reynolds really is. Because here's the thing, ambiguity sells. In a world where identity is more fluid than ever, playing the line between straight-laced family man and flamboyant, edgy trickster keeps people curious. And curiosity? That keeps Reynolds trending. But the leaked texts painted a different picture. Behind the scenes, Reynolds didn't sound like someone in on the joke. He sounded like someone who was uncomfortable. With himself, with the image he'd created, with how the world might perceive him if the mask slipped even slightly. It was like watching two versions of the same person collide. The public Ryan, smooth and confident, and the private one, messy, anxious, and clearly hiding something. So now people are asking, is this all just clever PR? Or is there a deeper identity crisis unfolding in real time, right in front of us? And just when you think it couldn't get more personal, Hugh Jackman's story crashes right into Ryan's. While Ryan's public image was starting to crack, things weren't looking much better for Hugh Jackman. After nearly 27 years of marriage, Jackman and his wife, Deborah Lee Furness, quietly announced their separation in September 2023, and that timing couldn't have been worse. Not just because it lined up perfectly with the lawsuit chaos involving Reynolds and Lively, but because it landed smack in the middle of filming Deadpool and Wolverine, the very project that was supposed to celebrate their bromance on the big screen. And let's be real, the internet immediately lit up with speculation. People had questioned Jackman's personal life for years, his sexuality, his unusually private marriage, and the fact that he married a woman 13 years older at the peak of his fame. And now, suddenly, the relationship is over. Right as this legal firestorm hits, yeah, people noticed. But what really turned heads was what came after the divorce. Jackman was suddenly linked to Sutton Foster, his co-star in The Music Man. The press rolled it out like it was some heartwarming post-divorce rebound, but to a lot of people, it felt a little too convenient, a little too clean. Even Candace Owens pointed it out, saying this wasn't romance, it was damage control. A calculated PR move to quiet the rumors and project a certain image, one that screamed straight, family-oriented, nothing to see here.
Unforgettable co-star.
I am going to hell.
But here's the kicker. If Jackman really had nothing to hide, why the sudden shift in narrative? Why the staged paparazzi shots? The rapid rollout of a new love interest? And the constant push to keep the focus on anything but the rumors, because just like with Reynolds, the whispers weren't going away. In fact, the deeper this lawsuit went, the louder they got. And the connections between Jackman's personal life and Ryan's unraveling career, they were starting to look a lot less like coincidence and a lot more like a cover-up. And the person caught in the middle of it all? Blake Lively. While Ryan and Hugh were grabbing headlines, Blake Lively was playing a much quieter game, but maybe the smartest one of all. Behind the scenes, her legal team was moving fast, pushing hard for something called an AEO designation, attorney's eyes only. Basically, it's a way to lock down sensitive information so tight that not even the people involved in the case can see it, only the lawyers. Now, that kind of legal move isn't unheard of, especially in high-profile cases. But here's the thing. It's usually done to protect something big, something career-ending. Blake's team argued that if certain documents were made public, they wouldn't just be embarrassing, they'd be devastating, not just to her, but to unnamed third parties. People who, if exposed, could apparently have their entire careers destroyed. Let that sink in. Because when a celebrity starts going to this level of legal lockdown, it's not about protecting a reputation anymore. It's about hiding something way deeper. The court wasn't fully convinced either. The judge pushed back, saying the AEO protections had to be limited and justified. Translation? Not everything can be kept in the dark, and that opened the door for more revelations to come out. Ones that Blake's team clearly wanted buried. So the question is, what are they so desperate to keep secret? What's in those documents that's so toxic, so damaging, that it might take down not just Blake and Ryan, but possibly Hugh Jackman too? And with rumors swirling that Blake and Ryan aren't even living together anymore, the pressure's starting to show. The perfect Hollywood couple image is cracking, fast. But this legal chess match? It's only just beginning. And Ryan, he's about to face his biggest threat yet.
I was hoping you might give me some accompaniment, maybe
I'm
little
going to chime in with a little,
sound,
like,
yeah.
we're scrolling like all the information and the phone number, and then it's going to say, don't fucking spoil.
For years, Ryan Reynolds built a brand around being the guy everyone loves. Quick with a joke, humble, a little self-deprecating, and totally drama-free. But behind that polished image, there's a very different story unfolding. Director Justin Baldoni, who worked with Reynolds and Blake on It Ends With Us, has filed a brutal lawsuit, accusing Ryan of defamation, extortion, and intentional interference with contracts. And these aren't just throwaway accusations. This is real. Courtroom level, serious. Baldoni claims Reynolds not only badmouthed him during filming, but actually called him a predator in public and behind closed doors. Twice. That word alone is career-killing. And now, Reynolds is trying to claim he believed it was true, so it shouldn't count as defamation. That defense? It's shaky at best. The lawsuit also points to Reynolds allegedly hijacking the creative process on set. According to insiders, Ryan didn't just act in the film, he tried to rewrite scenes, override the director's decisions, and completely control the final vision. And when things didn't go his way, he used his influence to push people out of the picture. This isn't just drama, it's classic Hollywood power play. A-list actors pulling strings behind the scenes, manipulating outcomes, and then spinning the story to protect their image. And the thing is, it's working less and less for Ryan. The guy who was once untouchable is suddenly looking very human, and not in the relatable, charming way he's known for, but in the this might actually blow up in his face way. Critics are already slamming his legal team's motion to dismiss the charges, calling it weak and full of contradictions. And fans? They're starting to look at Reynolds with a whole new level of suspicion, because if the lawsuit sticks, and the public finds out just how far Ryan allegedly went to control the narrative, it could be the end of that funny guy next door brand for good. And just when you think it couldn't get more personal, the leaked texts hit the internet. Then came the texts. Private messages, allegedly from Ryan Reynolds himself, started leaking online. And while at first glance they seemed harmless, maybe even goofy, something about them just felt off. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. The language was awkward, the jokes weren't landing. There were weird emotional shifts, almost like he was trying to say something without really saying it. And the more people looked, the more it started to seem like these texts weren't just casual banter.
Lively is hilariously crashing Ryan Reynolds' latest interview, while taking over hosting duties on Jimmy Kimmel Live alongside his Deadpool and Wolverine co-star Hugh Jackman.
They were a window into someone struggling with his identity. And then TikTok got involved. One creator broke it all down line by line, pointing out patterns, phrasing, even emotional red flags, suggesting that Reynolds may have been quietly battling something much bigger than a legal case. Something internal? Something personal? The conclusion? Ryan might be living a double life, and these texts? They could be the proof. Even Candace Owens, never one to hold back, chimed in, saying that this wasn't just about legal drama or scandal. It was about Ryan Reynolds being deeply uncomfortable with who he really is, and maybe even going to extreme lengths to keep that part of himself hidden. But here's the twist no one saw coming. Only 2 people reportedly had access to these texts, Ryan and Hugh Jackman, which brings us full circle. Because if Jackman really did leak them, as Owens strongly implied, then this wasn't just betrayal. This was precision sabotage, best friend turned silent enemy. And the motive? Maybe self-preservation, maybe revenge, or maybe just finally telling the truth. Either way, this isn't just about a lawsuit anymore. It's about 2 of Hollywood's biggest stars caught in a web of secrets, ego, and survival, where no one comes out clean, and the real story is still being written. So, did Hugh Jackman leak the texts? Or did Ryan finally lose control of the narrative he built so carefully? So now we're left with the question that no one in Hollywood wants to answer out loud. Was this all just a slow-motion train wreck of ego, secrets, and bad decisions? Or is something deeper unraveling behind the scenes, something that's been hidden for years, carefully packaged in charm and PR spin? Because the bromance everyone loved watching, it may have just turned into a quiet, calculated war. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman built a brand off of being inseparable, but now they're both trying to claw their way out of a legal firestorm that's exposing everything. Their personal lives, their private messages, their reputations, and in the middle of it all, there's Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, and a trail of red flags that makes one thing painfully clear. This wasn't just a bad moment. This was a cover story falling apart. So ask yourself, was Hugh Jackman really just an innocent bystander? Or was he the one pulling strings behind the curtain the entire time? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and remember, in Hollywood, the truth doesn't just get revealed, it gets leaked.